Hey, how you guys doing? I just wanted to talk real quick about the state of race relations in the country right now. What a mess. What a frickin' mess. And all these groups are chiming in and joining in and getting all messy all over the country. Nobody seems to know what to do or where we're going, how we're going to solve this issue. How to solve the race relations issue in the country. It's a tall order. That's a really tall order. If I was to suggest something, I think the key in my mind is number one, you have to have a leader. You have to have a leader, or you have to have a group, or you have to have some sort of an organization that represents the white community. Conflict Resolution 101. I mean, you ask the most seasoned HR director in this country and they'll tell you, any corporate HR director will tell you, Conflict Resolution 101, you bring the parties together. You have them talk it out. So in order for us to have a conversation on race, we have to have a seat at the table. That is the white community. Because if you don't, you're talking to yourself. So the white community is being talked at, we're being talked to, but we're not being talked with. And so we'll never solve the conflict unless you can solve that first obstacle. So you have to have an equal voice at the table so that it's almost like you have a table full of people that are representing every race and every ethnicity, every culture, every religion throughout this world, or if we just stick with the United States, but there's a seat empty, and that's from the white community. So there's nobody sitting there. So we can't have a conversation. We can't come up with solutions to the problems because we have nobody sitting there. You cannot solve race relations, race-related conflict and race-related issues solo. You just can't do it. It's impossible. It's like you standing on a stage and you're just talking by yourself, and all the seats in the audience are empty. So that's number one. So we have to have a leader in the white community, one that speaks with reason and logic and understanding and compassion, who disavows all forms of hate with regards to race or culture or sex or religion. And so when we get that voice of reason, then we can start talking about the issues. And I think we can break it down real easy between two subject matters. One would be police brutality, and we still aren't even close to solving that issue. Unfortunately, we don't have leadership at the very top to kind of put together some sort of a task force and have summits and conferences with all the chiefs of police throughout this country and mayors and governors and try to figure out ways to retrain and rethink and change the mentality. And again, we're just talking about the bad parts, the bad points, the bad people. The things that are working, we don't need to touch it. We don't need to fix it. It's the things that are not working. So the second segment I think that we need to discuss is systemic racism. The white community doesn't know what that is. They have no clue what that is, most, by the way, or for the most part, because it really hasn't affected us the way that it has the black community or the non-white community. And so when you talk about systemic or institutionalized racism, you've got a lot of segments of society that need to be discussed, whether it's housing or education or healthcare or the welfare or the income gap, the wealth gap is what I was trying to say. And so criminal justice reform, there's a lot of segments that need to be addressed, but it does no good to just kind of throw the word of systemic racism out there. You got to give the white community a little leeway, a little wiggle room there, because again, we're not that well versed on the subject matter for the most part in order to drive that conversation. And so, but those are the two main topics I think that need to be addressed once we have somebody sitting at the table representing our community. I like to think of race relations as a football game, and the subject matter race relations is the football. And so the football is going to be put on the 50-yard line, and our goal is to get that ball down the field in the right direction and score a touchdown. And what a glorious day that's going to be when that happens. And it is going to happen. So we don't want the ball to just sit there and not move, and we don't want the ball to go backwards. And so some of the actions that we've been seeing in society recently, it's really taken the ball in the wrong direction. And so there's a lot of internal, let's just say, self-inflicted things that are going on in the white community that need to be addressed and need to be fixed. There's a lot of things that are tearing our community apart. And so our community is very vast, from the poorest of the poor, people living on the street, people on welfare, people working in service industry, barely making it to survive, those in the lower middle class. Then you have your middle class, upper middle class, and you start getting into the more wealthy, and then maybe the super rich. So it's a very large swath of people there in our community that's filled, by the way, with a lot of different ethnicities and cultures. And so people are coming at this from a lot of different angles and a lot of different viewpoints. But we can bring it together, and we can make change, and it will happen. It's just a matter of time. And so as soon as we can get that person in there to start having these conversations, that's when we're going to start moving this ball down the field, and that's when we're going to score a touchdown.